Your old identity is not a solid object, it is a cloud of probabilities stabilized by what you repeatedly attend to, feel, and do. Each morning your brain predicts you into being, drawing on yesterday's emotions, postures, and stories like a scientist reusing the same prior. Intention is the moment you stop being the subject of those predictions and become the observer that chooses which path the system will actually take. In physics language it feels like a measurement. Scattered possibilities narrow into one concrete trajectory because you looked, decided, and embodied that decision. This collapse does not happen in thought alone. Attention is the steering wheel, emotion is the fuel, and physiology is the track that either grips or slides. When you hold a clear aim with a regulated body, steady breath, relaxed jaw, open chest, the salience network stops flagging the past as the only safe template. The default mode chatter quiets, alpha and theta rhythms broaden, and the brain's predictive machinery becomes teachable. You are no longer merely remembering who you were, you are drafting a new model of what I could be and giving your nervous system sensory evidence that it is real. Identity is a habit of perception. The old self survives by harvesting the same cues, the doorway that makes you hunch, the inbox that tightens your diaphragm, the mirror that resurrects yesterday's narrative. Changing identity means changing what your body expects to find when it meets those cues. Breath is the shortest lever. Lengthen the exhale and the vagus nerve tells the heart there is no emergency, heart rate variability rises, the amygdala loosens its grip, the cortex gets time to choose. Posture is another lever. Expand the chest and the map of your peripersonal space grows. Your brain literally allocates more real estate to futures where movement and choice are possible. Language is a third lever. Replace "I am anxious" with "anxious sensations are moving through," and you have reclassified experience from identity to weather. The past feels inescapable because memory is not a filing cabinet, it is a reconstruction performed in the present. When strong emotion floods the system, memories labeled enough to update are pulled from storage for editing. If you supply the same soundtrack, same tone of voice, same shoulder tension, they go back on the shelf unchanged. If you introduce a new state while the memory is open, slow breath, softened gaze, a clear image of the person you are becoming, the brain rewrites the tags attached to that episode. This is reconsolidation. The chemistry of "I have always been this way" begins to lose its authority. Imagination is not fantasy in this work, it is rehearsal. The brain upgrades what it can afford to simulate in high resolution. Build a scene in which your future self is already native, the way you enter a room, the cadence of your speech, the micro-choices at thresholds where the old you would hesitate. Give it multisensory detail, textures under fingertips, the timbre of your voice, the taste of clarity in your mouth, because neurons that fire together wire together more readily when the rehearsal is embodied. Dopamine is not a reward chemical, it is a prediction chemical. When your simulations are specific and emotionally congruent, dopamine marks them as promising hypotheses and the basal ganglia start gating real behavior in that direction. The body keeps the score, but it also keeps the possibility. Movement primes identity change because it alters interoception, the inside view of your physiology. A brisk walk before you make a decision changes the internal weather. A set of slow squats before a difficult conversation teaches your brain that energy is available, a stillness practice after the win teaches your system that safety can follow effort. These tiny edits teach your predictive brain that a new policy is in effect, we don't need the old reflex to survive. Gene expression is not destiny, it is a conversation with lived experience. Sleep quality reshapes emotional thresholds by clearing metabolic noise. Light in the morning entrains circadian genes that govern mood and focus. Consistent practice raises BDNF, making plasticity easier tomorrow than it was today. Food signals, sunlight, breath, and movement are letters in the alphabet that writes how your cells allocate attention. You are not forcing a transformation, you are creating conditions in which the new pattern becomes the most energy-efficient solution. Systems adopt what conserves surprise. Give your nervous system repeated evidence that the future you imagine reduces internal conflict, and it will prefer that future. Relationships are laboratories for collapse and re-emergence. Nervous systems synchronize, mirror neurons copy posture, tempo, and even hope. Curate a microculture that rehearses your next self, people who speak in verbs rather than verdicts, who ask better questions instead of offering smaller fears. Let your environment become a prophecy, place the book where your hand falls, set the cue where your eyes land, let your music score the state you intend to inhabit. The old identity loses mass when the room stops orbiting it. Time is also malleable in practice. Treat the future as a memory you are recalling early. Close your eyes and remember tomorrow, not as a wish, but as retrieval. How did you stand when you delivered that sentence? Where did your breath sit when you chose the bolder option? What did your hands do in the 2 seconds after the old reflex tried to intervene? Retrieve, feel, anchor. When the moment actually arrives, your body will recognize the scene and choose the path you primed. Relapse is not failure, it is data. Prediction errors, moments where the old pattern reasserts itself, are opportunities to refine the model. Map the trigger, feel the urge as sensation, give it a name that reduces mythology, and install a microscopic alternative. If the old you reached for the phone to numb, the new you reaches for the glass of water first. If the old you defended, the new you asks one clarifying question. These are not small acts, they are measurements that keep collapsing the wave in the same direction until the probability cloud of who I am is dense with evidence. There is a point in practice when effort thins and identity carries you. Repetition reorganizes networks, myelination makes the new path smooth, the behavior that required intention becomes the baseline prediction. You notice that your voice shapes differently around truth, your shoulders arrive early to help, your attention keeps wandering toward what you said you wanted. This is not magic, it is a system that has learned to recognize itself. The observer and the observed have become one phenomenon. If you want a single sentence to navigate by, use this: aim with clarity, regulate the body, rehearse with specificity, act in microdoses, and harvest the smallest proof. Each breath is a measurement. Each choice is a boundary condition. Each night your brain updates its priors, and each morning you wake in the universe you trained it to expect. The collapse of the old personality is not destruction, it is precision. You are not disappearing, you are resolving. Identity change accelerates when you treat your day like a laboratory and your attention like an instrument that takes precise measurements. Begin before language boots up, in the first 30 seconds after waking, the predictive brain is soft clay. Keep your eyes half closed, place one palm low on the abdomen, and let 3 slow breaths expand from there. Whisper a single sentence in the present tense that names the behavior you intend to embody today. Not a slogan, an instruction the body can execute: I speak slowly and look people in the eyes, or I finish the small thing I start. Then run a 10-second internal film of you doing it, with posture, tone, and micro-timing intact. This is not cheerleading, it is preloading a policy so the system can recognize the moment when it arrives. Throughout the day, convert thresholds into switches. Doors, logins, screens lighting up, these are the places where the old self usually regains control. Install an if-then: if I touch the handle, I lengthen one exhale and lift my sternum; if I open a new tab, I ask, what is the smallest next truth? Predictive brains love invariance, so let the invariant be the state that precedes action. Over a week, the cue will demand the new state automatically, and your choices will feel less like effort and more like gravity. Rehearsal must be multisensory to win. Visual images alone are brittle, add sound, weight, and temperature. Hear the cadence of your future voice, feel the click of the decisive step in your heel, taste the air of the room where you deliver the line you used to avoid. Emotional congruence matters more than grandeur. Your nervous system will not adopt a script that feels performative, it will adopt one that conserves internal conflict. Make the scene exact, small, believable, then layer intensity after the circuit accepts the signal. You will meet residues of the old pattern, and that is your richest data. When you notice the reflex, tight throat, scrolling impulse, defensive quip, pause long enough to tag it aloud in a whisper, old contract. Tagging moves activity from limbic speed to cortical choice. Then run a micro-intervention that takes less than 20 seconds, 3 counted exhales, 1 shoulder roll, 1 question beginning with, "What would future me do in the next minute?" You are not trying to be a different person for an hour, you are trying to collapse the wave in a different direction once, and then again, until the path of least resistance migrates. The environment must become a co-author. Place friction where the old behavior lives and remove friction where the new one needs help. Put the distracting app 1 folder deeper and the writing dock pinned to the first slot, leave the water glass already filled beside your keyboard, stage the shoes by the door pointing out. Identity is embodied logistics. When your room makes the next right action the shortest path, discipline begins to feel like architecture rather than struggle. Language is a control surface. Replace identity labels with process descriptions, not "I am disciplined," but "I keep today's promises in 5-minute slices." Not "I'm confident," but "I let silence last 2 beats before I answer." The nervous system can measure a beat, it cannot install an abstract trait. Collect proofs, note cards, voice memos, check marks. Evidence collapses doubt. At night, review 3 tiny wins and 1 prediction error with curiosity, not prosecution. Ask, "What cue did I miss?" and "What smaller promise would have succeeded?" Then make that promise for tomorrow by writing it where your eyes will land first. Stillness is not empty, it is a high-resolution sensor. Sit for 5 minutes with eyes soft, attention on the coolness of the inhale at the nostrils and the warmth of the exhale at the lips. Let thoughts pass as weather and keep returning to temperature. This anchors the observer stance in physiology, not philosophy. From that vantage, you can watch urges arrive, crest, and dissolve, a direct demonstration that impulses are events, not identity. The more often you witness a wave without riding it, the easier it becomes to choose which signal earns action. Relationships tune your nervous system whether you intend it or not. Seek conversational partners who ask for specificity and celebrate process. Notice whose presence shrinks your breath and whose presence lengthens it. This is not moral accounting, it is respiratory science. Spend more hours where your rib cage opens and your voice drops into the body. Borrow language from the future by saying, "In my practice we," even if "we" is you alone for now. Social proof can be simulated long enough for reality to catch up. Let sleep become part of the protocol. Frame the last 5 minutes of your day as a message to the systems that will consolidate memory and prune synapses while you rest. Dim lights, place the phone outside arm's reach, and write a single paragraph as if you were already living the behavior that mattered most today. Include 1 sensation, 1 sentence you spoke, and 1 obstacle you metabolized. You are handing your brain an editing guide, this is what to keep, this is how to file it, this is the pattern we are stabilizing. Forgiveness is an efficiency upgrade, not a moral performance. Guilt is a high-cost way to remember not to repeat something, clarity is cheaper. When you miss a promise, state precisely what happened and what you will do differently at the next cue. Then move. The system learns from clean, swift corrections. Shame freezes the model in place, responsibility lubricates plasticity. You are not excusing the past, you are reclaiming the energy you need to build the next frame. As the practice matures, you will feel a shift from forcing to allowing. The breath shows up earlier than the trigger, the posture arrives before the doubt, the question replaces the defense without being summoned. This is the nervous system choosing the low-entropy path you engineered. The old self loses probability mass not because you killed it, but because you fed a better hypothesis. You aimed with clarity, regulated the body, rehearsed with texture, acted in microdoses, and harvested proof. Now the measurement happens by itself. Treat each moment as a superposition of small futures and let your choice be the instrument that decides which one becomes the world. The past will offer its familiar certainty, thank it for its service and return to the breath. Hold the image long enough for the chemistry to align. Speak the sentence that belongs to the next you. Step the step he or she would take. Collapse the wave again. Neural change sticks when you give the brain clear prediction errors wrapped in safety. Create deliberate mismatches that say, this moment is familiar, but we respond differently now. If the old you tightens before speaking, step forward half a foot while relaxing your tongue against the palate and let the exhale lengthen as you begin the first word. The body reads the novel combination, approach plus ease, and updates its priors. Precision matters. Identity is not a slogan you install, it is a set of micro-coefficients your nervous system tunes through repeated, low-drama proofs. Treat attention like a lens with adjustable aperture. Wide aperture for creativity, unfocus your gaze slightly, let peripheral vision flood in, and notice how possibilities multiply. Narrow aperture for execution, pick one edge in the scene, a door frame, a cursor, a fingertip, and let your breath sink to it for 3 cycles until everything else dims. By toggling aperture on demand, you teach your cortex to stop confusing ideation with action. The old identity burns time and indecision, the new identity swaps lenses. Work with state before story. If your chemistry is tilted toward threat, the best self-talk will sound like propaganda to your midbrain. Use a 90-second state shift, 3 long exhales, cold water across the face or wrists, 1 full body shake to discharge static, then a single posture cue, sternum light, crown tall, until the first impulse to rush dissolves. Only then deliver the instruction. Changing the story without changing the state is like changing the software while the battery is dying. Design one keystone ritual that is embarrassingly simple and relentlessly repeatable. It could be a 2-minute first block where you place your hands on the home row and type one sentence without editing, or a threshold bow where every exit from a room includes a tiny forward nod to mark closure and presence in the next space. Rituals anchor identity because they happen regardless of mood. Moods argue, rituals proceed. This steadiness becomes the backbone of your new self-image. I am the kind of person who shows up without negotiation. Use counterfactual rehearsal to widen what your brain considers available. Take one scene from today that pinched, an abrupt email, a stare that triggered contraction, and run a clean alternate history for 30 seconds, the breath that stayed low, the question you asked, the relaxed jaw as you pressed send. Let your body feel the chemistry of that version. You are not indulging fantasy, you are training the prediction machinery to expect different outcomes when the cue reappears. Borrow the physics of oscillation. Every system that adapts does so through cycles of tension and release. Build pulses into your day, 25 minutes of focus strain, 5 minutes of deliberate downshift with eyes on a far horizon or a patch of sky. This pendulum prevents the old identity from framing effort as danger. Over time the amplitude you can sustain grows, not because you grind harder, but because recovery is built into the waveform. Rewrite identity contracts in plain sensory English. When I feel heat in the chest and a pull to retreat, I let the breath fall into the belly for 3 counts, rest the tongue, and ask one generous question. Print it. Put it where your eyes land before the moment you usually lose. Contracts beat affirmations because they bind perception to action through measurable cues. Each time you fulfill one, you record a data point that shrinks the error bars around who you are becoming. Turn your environment into a silent coach. Light from the side rather than from above to reduce squint and jaw tension. Sit with the doorway in peripheral vision so your system doesn't waste cycles scanning for interruptions. Use scent sparingly as a state marker, 1 note of citrus for focus, 1 of cedar for decompression, so the limbic system can index contexts quickly. These adjustments aren't aesthetic, they are control inputs to a predictive organism that craves stable signals. Let language carry time in your favor. Speak about near futures as if they were memories. After I send this paragraph, I'll stand and drink water, and then match the memory. The moment your action confirms the sentence, dopamine stamps the sequence as trustworthy. Stack a few of these micro-prophecies and the day begins to feel prescripted by a wiser author, you. This is not superstition, it is training the brain to bias toward trajectories you've already embodied. Curate the informational diet that feeds your nervous system between efforts. One page of a book that enlarges possibility, one conversation that values specificity over drama, one song whose rhythm steadies your breath. These are inputs, not decorations. The old identity is underfed on precision and overfed on adrenaline. The new identity asks, before each intake, will this make my next promise easier? When setbacks arrive, audit for granularity rather than character. Ask what unit was too large, 5 minutes instead of 15, one outreach instead of 5, one clear sentence instead of a flawless page. Then ratify the smaller unit immediately. Plasticity respects speed more than magnitude. A swift repair teaches your system that deviation is just another step in the learning curve, not proof of a fixed essence. Close the day with integration rather than judgment. Sit on the edge of the bed, let the jaw slacken, and name 3 moments when the new policy held. Feel where in the body those moments live, maybe a warmth behind the sternum, a steadiness in the hands. Name one place the old reflex won, and imagine the single movement you'll insert tomorrow at that cue. You are telling your sleeping brain what to keep wiring, what to prune, and what to try next. Overnight, synapses will quietly rearrange to honor the plan. There comes a morning when you realize you no longer need to remember to be this person. The breath arrives ahead of the choice, the spine lengthens before the room tests you, the sentence forms with less friction than the excuse. What used to be an active will has become the default physics of your inner world. The transformation is not theatrical. It is quiet, precise, and cellular. The past keeps offering a story, the body keeps answering with evidence. And in that evidence, the probability cloud of who you are continues to resolve into someone you once could only imagine. You can accelerate the shift by letting precision and play coexist. Precision gives your nervous system clean signals, play gives it permission to explore without threat. Build experiments that are safe to fail but rich in information, change the tempo of your morning by 5% and watch what follows. Invert the order of 2 routine steps and notice which story tries to reassert itself. The brain learns through contrasts. When the contrast is small and kind, plasticity says yes. Teach your eyes to lead your state. The oculomotor system is a direct dial into arousal. Softening the gaze and widening the field invites parasympathetic tone, holding a steady fixation on a single contour narrows noise when you need to execute. Slow horizontal saccades can downshift a racing mind faster than a paragraph of advice. Pair gaze with breath and posture, and you have a 3-axis controller for chemistry that used to feel like destiny. Let the cerebellum become your quiet coach. It does not speak in words, it speaks in timing. When you practice a new behavior, exaggerate rhythm before you refine content. Count the beat at which you begin a sentence, the pause that follows a question, the cadence of your step when you choose the difficult hallway. The cerebellum predicts errors milliseconds ahead of awareness and tunes you toward grace. Identity, at scale, is a choreography problem. Use noise wisely. Biological systems sometimes need a little randomness to hop out of stale attractor states. This is stochastic resonance. Add a gentle perturbation when you're stuck, a different room, a cooler temperature, a change in soundtrack, to lift the signal of the choice you want to make above the habit floor. Too much novelty and the system alarms, just enough and a door appears where a wall used to be. Reframe cravings as misdirected precision. A craving is the body's attempt to resolve uncertainty with the fastest available routine. Thank it for its efficiency and offer a more intelligent resolution: water before sugar, movement before scrolling, one sincere text before social anesthesia. Each substitution gives dopamine a better hypothesis to fund. Over days, your striatum learns that relief arrives from agency rather than from sedation. Give meaning a job description. Vague purpose inflames perfectionism, concrete purpose calms it. Name the human your action serves, even if that human is you in 3 hours. Picture their shoulders dropping because you sent the draft, their afternoon opening because you answered in 3 sentences instead of 13. Service converts identity work from self-absorption into relational physics. Your nervous system will endure discomfort longer when someone else's ease is downstream. Audit your metaphors. The old self often smuggles itself in through language. If you tell yourself you are fighting procrastination, your body prepares for combat and burns out early. If you say you are shaping flow, the shoulders lower and fine control becomes available. Metaphors are covert instructions to physiology. Pick ones that make finesse cheaper than force. Train interoception with the same respect you give vision and hearing. Spend brief windows noticing heartbeat, gut warmth, throat openness, not as judgments but as coordinates. The more accurately you can read inside, the earlier you can intervene. You become the scientist of your own weather station. A front forms, you catch it at the first breeze, and you choose whether to sail into it or wait for a clearing. Let curiosity metabolize fear. Curiosity widens option space by a single degree at a time. When a difficult cue arrives, ask a tiny, athletic question: what is the texture of this urge, or where does this voice sit in the body? The system cannot be in high curiosity and high panic simultaneously. As curiosity rises, threat loses oxygen, and the next action becomes visible like a path appearing in fog. Design constraints that make the right thing obvious. Limit writing to one screen width so you can't escape into scroll. Cap research to 3 sources before action. Set a timer for 2 minutes to begin the call you've delayed. Constraints are not punishments, they are railings on a mountain path. With railings in place, your attention can admire the view while your feet stay honest. Let delight be part of the protocol. The nervous system remembers what sparkled. A splash of cold sun on your face after finishing the paragraph, a song you only play when you close a loop, a specific tea you brew before the conversation that matters. These are not indulgences, they are tags your brain uses to mark the new policy as desirable. Over time, the path of identity change is paved with small joys, and consistency stops feeling like penance. When the mind demands evidence, give it numbers. Track one metric that matters for the next self: minutes of deep work, conversations begun, promises kept in 5-minute slices. Not to police yourself, but to show your cortex the slope is real. Data shrinks the drama. A single upward trend line can silence 1,000 inner narratives because it lets your brain see what your body already knows: the collapse is underway, and a cleaner pattern is emerging. There is a quiet threshold where the metaphor of quantum choice feels less like poetry and more like craft. You notice that the moment of intention is a measurement you can feel. The breath gathers, the gaze steadies, the body selects one frame from many and inhabits it fully. The wave does not crash, it resolves. And with each resolution, you become easier to be. Let your nervous system experience certainty in the present before you ask it to release certainty from the past. Certainty is not a belief, it is a sensation: weight distributed through the feet, breath low and unforced, eyes steady on one point. When you anchor those signals, intention stops feeling like an argument against history and starts feeling like gravity in a new direction. The old personality was a set of shortcuts built to conserve energy under stress. The new one is a more intelligent shortcut. Make the efficient path the aligned path. Treat decision as a 2-step measurement: choose, then immediately enact one physical confirmation that takes fewer than 10 seconds. Speak one sentence, send one line, move one object into place. The brain records the coupling of inner selection and outer evidence as a single event. This binding lowers uncertainty the next time the cue appears. Each bound pair is a stitch, a row of stitches becomes a seam, a few seams become structure. Map your high-friction hours. Most people try to overpower their 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. dips with more force. Instead, reassign what those windows are for. Use the first dip for logistics, clear a small queue with calm cadence, so success remains available. Use the second dip for movement and light. Circadian physiology is not a moral test. Align chores with chemistry and your identity can accumulate wins without heroics. Install a first clean rep rule. The first email of the day is the shortest, the first set in the gym is technically perfect, the first minute after a meeting ends is used to write one sentence of synthesis. This primes the cerebellum to expect precision before speed. Momentum built from clarity is metabolically cheaper than momentum built from panic, and your body will vote for the cheaper option the next time. Make your future self's environment and your current self's environment the same room. Put tomorrow's clothes where your hand falls in the dark. Draft the first line of the next page before you close the laptop. Preposition objects at the edge of their task, the book already cracked open, the instrument tuned, the glass half filled. These choices shorten the distance between intention and entry and teach the brain that start is a glide rather than a cliff. When the past arrives with a full costume, smell, posture, inner monologue, use countermapping. Change one sensory channel without changing the scene. If the voice in your head accelerates, slow your jaw. If the shoulders rise, drop the gaze to mid-distance and widen it. If the breath climbs, place a palm on the ribs and lengthen the exhale by 2 seconds. The system reads these as incompatible with the old script and pauses long enough for you to install a new line. Practice micro-bravery with precise constraints. Make one ask each day that could yield a no. Keep it within a 2-sentence limit and a 2-minute window. Bravery rehearsed in small, bounded frames stops your amygdala from generalizing risk to everything. Over weeks, the zone labeled tolerable unknown expands, and identity follows the enlarged map. Direct attention with verbs. Nouns keep you cataloging the scene, verbs recruit the body. Soften, lengthen, place, send, close, stand, speak. Verbs tether consciousness to action and invite timing to the party. The old identity inflated nouns, titles, labels, categories, until you felt heavy. The new identity uses verbs to keep moving while staying specific. Let recovery be ritualized rather than improvised. Between efforts, run the same 90-second downshift, stand, look at the farthest point you can see, inhale through the nose, exhale longer than you inhaled, roll the shoulders once, let the tongue rest. The predictability of the sequence tells the midbrain that intensity does not equal danger. With that association rewired, you can work deeper without waking the alarm. Rewrite the social loop by becoming ridiculously clear about first moves. When a conversation tightens, your first move is a question with one clause. When you receive criticism, your first move is to rephrase what you heard until they nod. When praise arrives, your first move is to breathe, say, thank you, and let silence last 2 beats. Consistent first moves keep you from outsourcing identity to the room. Use numbers as quiet witnesses. Decide on one metric that proves you're living as the next version, minutes in deep work, nights with screens off an hour before sleep, instances of first clean rep charted by hand. The slant of the line is a feeling before it is a statistic. Seeing that slope each evening is a second collapse of the wave in the same direction. When hunger for novelty spikes, aim it wisely. Novelty is rocket fuel, misaimed, it burns holes. Channel it into skill depth for 7 days, 1 micro-skill practice daily, mic timing in speech, left-hand accuracy on an instrument, concise subject lines. The brain gets its dopamine from progress signals while identity earns a reputation for craftsmanship rather than distraction. Let meaning be sensory, not abstract. If your work helps people, picture a single shoulder dropping somewhere because you did your part. If your training builds capacity, feel the steadiness in your hands an hour later when you choose differently. Meaning that can be located in the body is meaning your nervous system will fund when fatigue arrives. At night, close the lab with respect. Name 3 states you embodied that belong to the new you, 1 choice you would retune by a single degree, and the first clean rep you will perform in the morning. Place the paper where your eyes land upon waking. Sleep will consolidate the tags you just applied, morning will retrieve them. You are not hoping to be different tomorrow, you are instructing the organism. There is a moment, sometimes in an ordinary hallway, when you notice the body has already chosen. The breath is low, the jaw is soft, the gaze is steady, the sentence is honest and brief. No drumroll. No argument. The old pattern presents its contract and you realize you no longer need what it was offering. The collapse completes without drama, and in the quiet that follows, the new trajectory feels like home. Identity becomes durable when you align three clocks: the fast clock of impulse, the medium clock of intention, and the slow clock of story. Most days the fast clock outruns the others, and you call it being me. Train them to meet. When an impulse fires, let intention catch it by adding one beat of silence before movement. When intention speaks, let story update by recording a single sensory detail that proves the choice occurred. Over weeks, the slow clock stops lagging. Your autobiography starts reporting what your body actually does rather than what your past insists you are. Self-image isn't a mirror, it's a compression algorithm. It throws away detail to save energy. To change the file, you must feed it new detail it cannot ignore. Specificity is your scalpel. Not "I'm focused," but "my shoulders drop and my eyes settle on the cursor for 3 breaths before I type." Not "I'm resilient," but after a difficult sentence lands, I let 2 beats pass and ask one clean question. The nervous system indexes those microframes and begins to predict from them. This is how an identity becomes searchable for the future you want to retrieve. The brain is a Bayesian organ running a free energy budget: minimize surprise, conserve fuel, survive. Give it a cheaper path to the same goals and it will adopt it without a fight. The cheaper path is clarity. Vague goals require constant arbitration, clean goals embed in muscle memory. When you state, "I close loops in under 2 minutes when possible," thousands of moments no longer require debate. The cost of being who you say you are drops, and the old personality loses its main argument: effort. Feelings are guidance signals, not verdicts. Anxiety is often just precision without a target, boredom is novelty without direction. Aim them. When energy spikes in the chest, assign it a job with a boundary: draft 3 sentences, walk 1 block, make 1 ask. When energy goes flat, shrink the unit until movement becomes obvious: 1 paragraph read aloud, 1 drawer cleared, 1 email with 5 words and a link. You are not suppressing chemistry, you are routing it. Memory reconsolidation gives you humane leverage. After any emotionally charged moment, there is a brief window when the file is open for edits. Use the next 5 minutes to overlay the new policy on the same cue: slow breath, soft jaw, 1 verb that would have changed the scene. Speak it once, or write it once, while the body is still warm with trace chemicals. The brain will bind the new action to the old trigger as if it had always been there. Small edits, applied while the clay is soft, accumulate into sculpture. Your environment can remove half your excuses if you let it. Place signals at the point of performance, not in abstract space. The sticky note belongs on the laptop bezel, not in a notebook. The kettlebell belongs beside the chair you sit in, not behind a door. The script of your next call belongs taped at eye level where your breath remembers to slow. Objects are programmable. You're writing firmware for your day with where you put things. Make your nervous system a trustworthy collaborator by paying your debts of rest. Deep work without deep rest teaches the midbrain that intensity equals threat. Pair effort with recovery that is equally precise: eyes on far distance to relax ciliary muscles, a short walk with arms swinging to reset vestibular inputs, a 2-minute diaphragmatic ramp down to return CO2 tolerance to baseline. When your body learns that strain is followed by safety, it stops sabotaging ambition to protect you. Communication is a field where collapse becomes visible. Old identity compresses under social pressure, new identity expands into clarity. Practice a stable, compassionate stance: request before story, brevity before brilliance, questions before defenses. Let corners of the mouth soften, breath drop, gaze steady. Deliver 1 clean sentence, let silence do half the work, then listen for the signal under the noise. The room begins to entrain to your nervous system instead of the other way around. Treat distraction as mismanaged orientation. Your attention is constantly deciding what is figure and what is ground. Choose the figure on purpose. Name it in one active clause, write the first line, send the date, confirm the time, and keep your eyes on the physical representation of that clause. When the ground grows loud, widen the gaze until the noise drops below threshold, then narrow again. This visual tuning fork matures into a felt sense of on track that no app can provide. When resistance feels metaphysical, make it mechanical. Lower the friction coefficient between intention and action. Pre-type the email greeting the night before. Keep your running shoes laced to slip on. Use a template for difficult asks that already contains the sentence you avoid. The more you externalize scaffolding, the less your nervous system has to fight gravity each time you begin. Over time, scaffolding becomes structure and the behavior becomes self-sustaining. Let your future self leave you artifacts that carry state. A short voice memo in your own calm tone reminding you how your breath felt when you were clear, a photo of your relaxed shoulders after the win, a two-line note that starts with, when you read this, do the smallest true thing. Artifacts compress time. They collapse tomorrow's hesitation into the present moment's readiness. Track proof, not performance. Proof is binary, did the first clean rep occur or not, and therefore immune to mood. Performance is graded and invites drama. When you accumulate proof, your cortex updates priors with less argument. You begin to experience the strange quiet of alignment, fewer internal negotiations, fewer panic-fueled sprints, more continuity between what you say at night and what you do at noon. The old identity will try to negotiate for survival by offering familiar discomforts dressed as truths. It will say you work better at the last minute, that you need chaos to feel alive, that relationships require friction to be honest. Ask for receipts. Then, in the next tiny window, provide contradictory evidence. One task begun early, 1 hour made rich without adrenaline, one hard conversation conducted without theater. Systems follow evidence, not eloquence. Every day contains hinge moments where a single breath would change the story. Find them by reviewing the day in reverse just before sleep, the conversation backwards to its first tone, the task backwards to the first click, the spiral backwards to the first micro-tightening. At the hinge, insert a different breath in imagination and a different verb. You will fall asleep teaching your brain a new timeline. In the morning, the body recognizes the scene and moves differently before you can explain why. Eventually, the metaphor of quantum collapse becomes a felt craft. You notice the instant when attention, breath, and posture align, a small certainty enters the body, the choice is made with the care of a lens snapping into focus. The wave doesn't crash so much as settle. And life becomes a sequence of these precise settlements, measurements that keep favoring the same elegant hypothesis until even your past admits, this is who you are now. The nervous system trusts what it can sense, not what it can imagine, so feed it a steady stream of physical confirmations that your new trajectory is real. Uncertainty becomes raw material when you treat it like unshaped clay rather than a verdict. The move is simple: perceive, pause, pivot, proof. Perceive the cue with one clear label: tight chest, urge to hide, scroll impulse. Pause for a single beat and let the breath fall low. Pivot with one verb that changes the energy by 1 degree: ask, stand, send. Then collect proof: a line shipped, a door entered, a sentence spoken. That loop, repeated quietly, is an identity printer. Expect grief to visit as you shed the old contracts. Grief is not a sign you chose wrong, it's the nervous system releasing investments that once kept you safe. Give the old pattern a small funeral without mythology, thank it for its efficiency, name what it protected, and retire it with one visible act that symbolizes closure: deleting a template, boxing an object, removing a bookmark. Ritual converts emotion into completion and frees bandwidth for the next pattern to stabilize. Keep a future memory bank. Deposit tiny artifacts while you are in state: a photo of your relaxed shoulders after the call you dreaded, a 15-second voice memo in your unhurried tone, a sticky note with the exact sentence you used when you were brave. These are retrieval cues, not souvenirs. On rough days you don't argue with your history, you play one memo, see one image, read one line, and let your body remember how certainty felt. Make values metabolizable. Integrity is heavy until you translate it into microbehaviors your physiology can execute under load. Answer in fewer words than you want to. Say, I don't know, once per day. Return what you borrowed today, not tomorrow. When values become verbs, your brain stops burning fuel on deliberation and your story stops lagging your actions. When your environment is loud, shrink the ritual, not the standard. Use a minimum viable protocol that travels anywhere. 3 long exhales, soften gaze to peripheral, name the next verb, move one object toward completion. In a noisy world, consistency beats intensity. A portable ritual keeps the new identity anchored when conditions are unkind. Calibrate arousal like a craftsperson. Adrenaline is not the enemy, misplaced adrenaline is. Before high-stakes action, raise alertness just enough, 2 fast inhales, 1 long exhale, shoulders down, then install a slow first sentence to prevent overshoot. Afterward, deliberately downshift, eyes on distant horizon, tongue resting, breath longer than before, to teach the midbrain that intensity ends in safety. With repetition, your system stops equating challenge with threat and starts reading it as precision. Let names help. When you say your first name before a tricky choice, your name, choose the smaller true move, you create just enough distance to interrupt reflex and invite the observer back online. Alternate with you when you need a coach, you can send one clean line, and with we when you want the body to feel joined, we breathe, then ask. Pronouns are handles for state, use the one that steadies the hand. Practice silence as a kinetic skill. Silence is not the absence of words, it is the presence of attention. In a conversation, let 2 beats pass after the other person stops. Train those 2 beats while walking by matching them to steps so your body recognizes the rhythm under pressure. Silence edited into speech turns your voice into a tuning fork. Rooms organize around signals that are paced rather than panicked. Install a meltdown protocol before you need it. When the old pattern surges and you ride it, don't add a second error called shame. Run 3 steps, stop the spiral, cold water on wrists or face, reduce the unit, 1 sentence of repair, 1 apology without explanation, 1 small cleanup, and write a single line that begins with, next time at this queue I will. The system learns that repair is part of the plan, not a personal indictment. Identities that forgive fast evolve fast. When motivation thins, feed your brain better questions. How do I feel? Often returns noise. Ask, what is the smallest honest next move, or, what state would make this easy? Honest plus smallest plus next reduces uncertainty enough for action to appear. The answer is usually physical, sit up, exhale longer, open the dock, type 1 subject line, not philosophical. Let action carry meaning, not the other way around. Design friction gradients. Make behaviors that grow you feel like downhill, tools preloaded, first lines pre-written, water poured, shoes placed in the slipstream of your route. Make regressions uphill by adding microcosts, app behind a folder, snacks on a high shelf, drama sources 2 clicks deeper. Identity follows the energy landscape you build in your room. Use edge practice to stretch without snapping. Choose one location where the old reflex was strongest, a doorway you avoided, a contact you delayed, a mirror that triggered collapse. Visit that edge daily for 30 seconds under ideal chemistry, slow breath, soft jaw, steady gaze, 1 rehearsed sentence. The goal isn't heroics, it's familiarity. Edges cease to be cliffs when your nervous system has mapped them in calm weather. When your inner narrator argues, give it a job, evidence clerk. Ask it to list 3 proofs from the last 24 hours that the new policy is real. If it can't find them, that's guidance, not condemnation. Go create the proofs in 5 minutes. The critic becomes a data collector, and data favors the version of you that acts. Treat creativity as identity's ally, not its saboteur. Channel novelty into variations on one theme rather than new themes every day. 10 ways to open a conversation, 5 ways to ask for clarity, 3 ways to begin a paragraph. Constrained invention scratches the novelty itch while deepening skill. Mastery feels like freedom because constraint handled well produces flow. When you need courage, borrow time from the future. Speak one sentence from the vantage point of the you who already survived this moment. I'm grateful I sent the note even with my heart racing, or, it turns out clarity felt kinder than avoidance. Then match it with a physical move in the present. Time, in practice, is a lens, tilted until the calmer you is doing the seeing. End your day like a scientist and a poet, log one observation with numbers, minutes in deep work, loops closed, one with sensation, warmth behind sternum during the ask, steadiness in hands after the call, and one with language, the sentence you want more of tomorrow. Place them where morning eyes land. Sleep will bind today's measurements into tomorrow's expectations. One morning, without ceremony, you will notice that the organism has defaulted to your chosen physics. Breath finds the belly before the meeting, eyes settle on one point before you speak, verbs outnumber excuses. The past still knocks, but your hand reaches for the new handle first. This is what the collapse of an old personality feels like from the inside, not a crash, but a clear resolution, attention, intention, and action snapping into the same frame until the person you practice becomes the person you are. Treat confidence as a physiological event you can reproduce, not a personality trait you must wait for. Remember the last time certainty lived in your body, how your weight settled into the midfoot, how your voice warmed on the second sentence, how your eyes chose one anchor in the room. Recreate those 3 ingredients before the next decision, even if your mind is noisy. State first, story second. The body does not need the mind's permission to lead. When fear announces itself, assume it is accuracy without context. It has detected change and is asking for proof of safety. Provide proof in the smallest currency available, breath that completes its cycle, shoulders that drop by 1 centimeter, one sentence sent that closes a loop. The organism updates when sensation and action verify intention. If you cannot make a big move, make a measured one and let momentum carry the rest. Let your future identity lease space in the present. Place an object that belongs to the next you where your current you must touch it, the upgraded pen at your keyboard, the running shoes by the door, the printed sentence you speak when conversations turn sharp. Each contact is a soft handshake across timelines. You are teaching muscle memory to prefer the door that leads forward. Curate the first and last words you hear from yourself each day. In the morning, one verb with a body cue, begin, jaw soft. At night, one sentence of recognition, today I moved when I would have stalled. These bookends compress your day into a narrative your nervous system can trust. Trust, not intensity, sustains change. When the inner prosecutor appears, turn it into an engineer. Instead of indictments, you always fold, ask for tolerances and specs. What unit was too large? Which cue arrived unannounced? What fixture can carry the weight next time? Engineers do not shame steel, they strengthen joints. Let your questions build joints. Practice, one frame courage. Most people imagine they need bravery that lasts an hour, you need bravery that lasts a breath. In the frame where the old reflex peaks, intervene with one practiced line, here's the truth in one sentence, I'll go first, I need a moment, delivered with the posture you've rehearsed. Courage in a single frame changes the film. Design rooms that speak in verbs. A clear surface says, place, a sticky note at eye level says, send, a chair turned toward the window says, breathe, a lamp angled low says, write. Your environment becomes a macro nervous system that prompts the micro one. If a room can whisper the next true move, you don't have to shout at yourself to proceed. Treat anticipation as a skill. Before a known hinge, pre-solve the first 5 seconds, where your eyes land, what your hands do, which word begins the sentence. Then rehearse the recovery sequence if the worst happens, breath, paraphrase, ask. With both paths scripted, uncertainty loses drama and action regains velocity. Give generosity a measurable shape. Generosity steadies identity because it moves attention out of self-consciousness and into service without theater. Be specific and bounded, reply within 3 lines, send a resource without commentary, ask one clarifying question that makes the other person's thinking easier. Service that is crisp and renewable becomes the scaffolding that holds you upright on tired days. Build a small sanctuary of inputs that reset your chemistry. One page that expands perspective, one song that levels breath, one image of your own relaxed shoulders after a win. Keep them reachable without search. The mind respects what the hand can touch. When you feel the old weather gathering, change the sky with a single artifact. When you stumble, protect the asset, your willingness to try again. Run a 2-minute repair, acknowledge plainly, make the smallest amend in the same hour, and record the lesson in one line that begins with, "Next time at this cue." Your nervous system learns that errors are compost. Shame burns the field, repair enriches it. Let your language cash checks. Speak only the promises you can keep soon. I'll send a draft by 3, I'll call in 5 minutes, I'm stepping outside to breathe and I'll be back. Each kept micro-promise lowers the cost of the next one. Over time, your words become light enough to carry far and heavy enough to matter. Practice widening and narrowing attention like breathing. Wide when you ideate, narrow when you execute. Teach this reflex by pairing it with gaze, peripheral for options, single point for action, and with breath, free for exploration, longer exhale for decision. The alternation becomes a metronome that keeps you from drowning in possibilities or starved by perfection. When the past arrives dressed as certainty, answer with receipts. List 3 proofs from the last 72 hours that contradict its thesis: the early start, the honest ask, the calm reply. Say them aloud. Hearing your own evidence changes more behavior than hearing your opinions about yourself. Evidence is the language the predictive brain obeys. Close the loop each evening with a brief triage of meaning: what mattered, what moved, what will continue. Write one number that shows slope, one sensation that shows state, one sentence you want more of tomorrow. Put the page where morning eyes land. You are not hoping to wake as a different person, you are handing tomorrow's you a measured inheritance. There will be a day when effort gives way to recognition. You will meet an old trigger and feel the breath arrive before the doubt, the posture lift before the thought, the verb land before the excuse. The measurement has been repeated so many times that collapse is no longer dramatic, it is precise. The probability cloud of who you are narrows into the line you chose, and walking it feels like relief. Treat willpower as a bridge, not a home. It gets you across the first gap, skills make the new shore livable. Skills are state skills, breath placement, gaze control, posture cues, timing skills, when to speak, when to pause, and framing skills, how to name what is happening so your physiology can cooperate. Install one of each and practice them where the stakes are low, so under pressure your body reaches for tools instead of tails. Shrink the delay between intention and microproof until there is no room for argument. Call it the 2-breath rule: on the first breath you choose, on the second breath you enact a visible centimeter of the choice. Type the subject line, step through the doorway, say the first clean word. That centimeter teaches your cerebellum the rhythm of courage and your cortex the taste of momentum. Repetition turns centimeters into strides. Use precision weighting to bias perception toward the future you. Your brain assigns confidence to some signals and downgrades others. Raise the precision of cues that serve you, the feel of feet grounded, the temperature shift at the nostrils, the lower register of your voice when you're honest. Lower the precision of noise, catastrophic images, rehearsed self-accusations, old facial memories that used to hijack you. You do this by labeling the helpful sensations in real time and letting the unhelpful ones pass without elaboration. Attention is a budget, spend it on signals you want amplified. Practice bilateral calm to clear static before pivotal choices. Walk a slow line while your eyes track horizon left to right and back again, let breath lengthen on the return sweep. Alternation invites the nervous system out of tunnel states. When the field widens, option space appears, and the smallest intelligent move becomes visible again. Let friction teach form. If a behavior keeps failing, assume the unit is too large or the entry is too abrupt. Have the unit soften the entry. One sentence, not a page. A hello, not a pitch. A question with one clause, not a manifesto. Form first, volume later. Hebbian plasticity rewards clean repetitions, messy intensity just writes chaos faster. Give your future a postal address in the room. Designate a single surface where only next you objects live, the open book with a ribbon at the line you'll read, the index card with the sentence you'll send, the timer already set to 10 minutes. That altar of readiness collapses the imagined later into a reachable now. When your hand meets that surface, the environment finishes the sentence for you. Train CO2 tolerance so steadiness is cheap. Breathe in through the nose, exhale longer than you inhaled, then hold for 2 quiet counts before the next inhale. Do 5 cycles. You're teaching chemoreceptors that more carbon dioxide can mean focused rather than threat. Decisions made in this chemistry waste less life. Use WOOP without the slogans, name the wish, one verb, picture the outcome as a bodily scene, relaxed shoulders after send, name the obstacle as a sensation, tight throat, and plan the if-then move that addresses the sensation. If throat tightens, exhale, drop tongue, speak first word. You are not battling yourself, you're pre-wiring the detour. Make novelty serve depth. Pick a single skill that upgrades many moments, concise openings, or calm asks, and invent small variations daily, 5 different first sentences, 3 different cadences, 2 different stances. Novelty rewards the brain, constraint rewards identity. Together they feel like play with traction. When dread appears, borrow a lens from the future and a tool from the past. The lens, write one line as if the action is already complete, I'm relieved I pressed send before noon. The tool, a ritual you trust, 2 long exhales, 1 precise posture cue, eyes on a single anchor. Merge them and move once. The body recognizes this choreography faster than the mind can debate it. Audit digital inputs the way an athlete audits sleep. Turn off badges, batch checks, keep creation tools 1 tap closer than consumption. Put grayscale on the slot machines, color on the canvases. You are training a predictive brain, show it that the shortest path to dopamine is progress, not friction. Treat evenings like a manufacturing line for tomorrow's ease. Stage the first clean rep, lay out the smallest obstacle, write the next tiny promise where morning eyes land. Then close with a 3-line ledger, number, slope, sensation, state, sentence, signal for tomorrow. Sleep is your silent engineer, give it specs. One day the hinge arrives and you feel the physics flip. The cue that used to contract you now cues the breath cues the verb cues the proof. No fanfare, no fight, just a clean measurement that keeps collapsing the same elegant outcome. What you called transformation feels, from the inside, like simplicity finally having its way. Treat focus like a renewable current you route, not a fire you chase. Before each block of work, define the smallest completion that would count as a win, set a visible timer, and pre-write the first line you'll execute when it starts. As the clock runs, let your gaze rest on a single anchor and let the exhale finish longer than the inhale. When distraction arrives, don't negotiate, label it once, widen your gaze for 2 breaths to let noise drop, then narrow again and touch the next verb. You are teaching attention to obey physics, expansion to reduce static, contraction to deliver force. Make courage measurable at social edges. Before a call, feel your feet, soften the jaw, choose one sentence that begins with, "Here's the truth" in 1 line, and rehearse the 2-beat silence that follows. If intensity spikes, lower your voice a half step and slow the first 5 words. That single modulation is a solvent for panic. Afterward, write the exact phrase you used and the sensation that followed, warmth under the sternum, steadier hands, and file it in your future memory bank. You are stockpiling proof that your system can carry clarity without breaking. Let movement upgrade self-trust. 10 slow squats with nasal breathing before a hard decision signal abundance, a brisk 2-minute walk between tasks resets orientation, a 1-minute wall hang softens protective shoulders that used to rise like armor. Movement is not a side quest, it is the fastest editor of interoception. When the inside reads, resourceful, the outside stops choosing scarcity. Turn rumination into research. Give the mind a clipboard and a form, cue, body state, story it told, verb you used, outcome. 5 rows per day, no essays. Patterns will surface within a week, a time of day where edges blur, a phrase that spikes arousal, a place where you always rush. Change one variable at a time and rerun the scene. You're not fighting yourself, you're running humane experiments. Upgrade your relationship with time by changing units. Most identity failures are unit errors, not character flaws. If an hour scares you, deal in minutes, if minutes wobble, deal in breaths. 3 breaths to choose, 3 to begin, 3 to finish the smallest slice. A life rebuilt in 9 breath increments looks like consistency from the outside and feels like relief from the inside. Let desire aim practice. Want is accurate, it points toward aliveness, but untrained, it grabs the closest relief. Translating desire into design is the move. If you crave influence, practice concise openings. If you crave freedom, practice closing loops. If you crave intimacy, practice one brave clarifying question. Desire becomes direction when it is given verbs. Rehearse endings as carefully as beginnings. Close emails with one clean ask and a time box. End meetings by naming the next visible proof and who owns the first inch of it. End workouts with 2 downshift breaths and 1 sentence of thanks to your body. End the day by writing tomorrow's first clean rep where your eyes will land. Endings tell the nervous system the loop is safe to close, safe closures make new beginnings cheap. When the old personality tries to bargain, respect its origin and retire its method. Say, you kept me fast when fast was survival, now precision is safer. Then demonstrate once. Speak the smaller honest sentence. Start 10 minutes earlier than the story says you can. Choose repair over theater in a tense exchange. Contracts dissolve when better contracts get signed with action. Use objects as anchors for states you want to stabilize. A smooth stone in the pocket that you touch only when you slow your breath, a pen reserved for messages that must be clear and kind, a mug you lift only after you ship a line. When sensation and object pair repeatedly, the object starts the state before you remember to ask for it. This is how rooms begin to coach you. Treat uncertainty like a workshop, not a courtroom. When you don't know what to do, run the 3-door test. Door A is the smallest reversible move, Door B is the smallest irreversible move, Door C is waiting with a ritual. Most days, A is the right answer. If it isn't, you'll know because reality sends you better data, and because you kept the move small, the lesson is cheap. On difficult mornings, borrow coherence before you borrow motivation. Sit, place a palm on the chest, breathe a little slower and deeper than normal, and evoke a real moment of gratitude or relief until the breath, heart, and mind feel like they're sharing a metronome. Do 90 seconds. Then stand and take one decisive step toward the smallest proof. Motivation follows congruence more reliably than it follows pep talks. Keep one promise sacred: never make yourself choose the same thing twice in a row. If you decided to show up, remove every extra decision between here and the first inch of doing. If you decided to stop, shut the loop with a tiny ritual so the system recognizes the closure. Decision fatigue is identity erosion. Single decide, single enact keeps the banks from crumbling. There will be a day when you catch yourself in the wild, mid-sentence, feeling the breath arrive first, the voice land low, the body aligned around one true verb. You'll notice that the moment didn't need drama to be different. It needed a measurement, attention, intention, and action touching the same point long enough for the wave to resolve the way you chose. That's the collapse you've been practicing, not an explosion, but a clean click into a new default that keeps proving itself with every small, elegant move.